two doubles partners who practiced together, laughed together, and celebrated together in Auckland and Indian Wells earlier this season now walk to opposite ends of court Philippe Chatrier for a first-round match at Roland Garros. Alex Eala and Iva Jovic have never faced each other in singles competition. Their first meeting happens at a Grand Slam. And the strangest part of this entire scenario is that neither player should feel comfortable on this surface, yet both have earned reasons to believe they belong here anyway. Let me place a number on what we know. Jovic is the 17th seed, ranked 16 spots above Eala, carrying a 21-12 season record that includes an Australian Open quarterfinal and a match point against reigning Roland Garros champion Coco Gauff in Rome less than 2 weeks ago. Eala enters ranked 38, carrying an 18-12 record of her own, fresh off a third-round run in Rome where she upset the 31st seed Wang Xinyu before running into Elena Rybakina. Both players lost in Strasbourg last week. Both arrive in Paris carrying mixed clay court evidence, and both know exactly how the other moves, thinks, and competes under pressure because they have been standing on the same side of the net for months. That doubles partnership is the element that makes this draw feel almost cruel. In Auckland back in January, Eala and Jovic teamed up to take down Alina Svitolina and Venus Williams in a match where they saved 7 set points in the opener before running away with the second set. They reunited at Indian Wells in March and reached the semi-finals. The chemistry was obvious. They communicated well between points, covered each other's weaknesses, and seemed genuinely to enjoy each other's company on court. Now they will spend an afternoon trying to exploit everything they learned about each other during those partnerships. The question of whether Eala can beat Jovic does not have a simple answer. It requires examining what each player has actually demonstrated on red clay in 2026, what their respective games look like when translated onto the surface, and whether the specific tactical geometry of this matchup favors one over the other. Start with Jovic's clay court education because it remains genuinely incomplete in ways that matter. She told reporters in Charleston that she did not step on clay until she was approximately 13 years old. She laughed about not knowing how to slide. Her 2025 clay season consisted of exactly 2 WTA events, Bogota, where she lost in the second round, and Roland Garros, where she beat Renata Zarazua before being dismantled by Elena Rybakina in straight sets. That was it. The sum total of her clay experience at the tour level before this year amounted to roughly 4 matches. This season Jovic committed to a full clay swing for the first time. The results tell a story of rapid but uneven adaptation. In Charleston, she beat Alicia Parks, Sofia Kenin, and Anna Kalinskaya before losing a competitive 3-setter to Jessica Pegula in the semifinals. That run announced her as a genuine clay competitor. In Madrid, she handled Magda Linette comfortably before Leylah Fernandez outmaneuvered her in 3 sets. In Rome, she found her best clay form yet, grinding past McCartney Kessler and Taylor Townsend in tight matches before pushing Gauff to the absolute limit. She led that 4th-round match against Gauff 7-5, 5-3, and held an actual match point. A tight forehand into the net, a cut finger from a fall on the clay, and suddenly the entire complexion changed. Gauff won 10 of the last 13 games. That Rome loss tells you 2 things simultaneously. It tells you Jovic can compete with the absolute best players in the world on clay. And it tells you she has not yet learned how to close when the surface slows everything down and gives her opponent time to find solutions. The difference between holding match point and converting it is enormous at this level, and on clay that gap widens further because the surface rewards the player who can sustain intensity over marathon rallies rather than the one who produces it in bursts. Then came Strasbourg, where Emma Navarro beat Jovic in 3 sets. Another loss. Another reminder that being talented on clay and being seasoned on clay are different things entirely. Now consider IGA's clay trajectory. Her career record on the surface has historically been concerning. A losing record in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. She lost her Roland Garros debut to Alina Avanesian last year. For a player who reached the top 30 on the strength of her hard court game, clay represented a genuine vulnerability. But something shifted this season. The work at the Rafa Nadal Academy, training alongside IGA Swiatek on the Mallorca clay under coach Joan Bosch, appears to have translated into measurable improvement. In Madrid, she beat Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova cleanly before Elise Mertens exposed her with a 6-2, 6-1 demolition. In Rome, she produced something entirely new. A first-set bagel against Magdalena Frech, a composed straight-sets upset of Wang Xinyu, and then a credible loss to the world number 2 Rybakina, where she competed point for point in both sets. The 6-4, 6-3 scoreline against Rybakina does not capture how close several games were. Her Strasbourg loss to Alexandra Olenikova was disappointing but instructive. IGA won the first set 6-3 and looked in control before the Ukrainian qualifier found a level of variety and shot-making that pulled the match away in 2.5 hours. What that loss exposed was familiar Eala's tendency to become passive when her initial aggression stops generating free points. On clay, where the ball sits up and invites opponents to dig in, passivity is fatal. So, both players arrive at Roland Garros with legitimate clay credentials earned this spring and legitimate clay vulnerabilities exposed in the same window. The question becomes which specific set of tools matters more in this particular matchup. Eala's left-handedness is a factor that deserves serious consideration. On clay, the left-handed serve swings further because the surface grips the ball and exaggerates spin. Eala's serve has been her acknowledged weakness throughout her career. She routinely served below 90 miles per hour on first serves last season, but reports from 2026 indicate genuine improvement in pace and placement. Against right-handers, the natural shape of her serve pulls into the body or swings wide to the backhand on the deuce court. Jovic's return position and timing will be disrupted by the angles she simply has not seen frequently in their doubles work, where Eala's serve was aimed at different targets. The forehand geometry also favors Eala in specific patterns. Her spin-heavy lefty forehand pulls right-handers wide to their backhand corner with sharp cross-court angles. Jovic's two-handed backhand is a genuine weapon. Her down-the-line backhand is perhaps her most dangerous single shot, but when stretched wide by Eala's forehand, she will be hitting defensive backhands rather than loading up offensive ones. The question is whether Eala can sustain the aggression required to keep Jovic pinned on that side. Jovic's advantages are more straightforward. She is extremely quick. Her movement has been the primary focus of her clay court development work, and multiple analysts have noted how rapidly she improved her sliding technique and court coverage. She hits cleaner off both wings than Eala, meaning she generates pace more efficiently without expending as much physical energy. She is also a year younger, fresher physically, and has demonstrated a willingness to play varied tennis, slices, drop shots, different return positions that she explicitly discussed working on for the clay swing. There is also the ranking gap to consider. Jovic is the seeded player here, which means she carries expectation and the draw opened in her favor structurally. But, being seeded in a first-round match against someone you know personally creates its own psychological weight. You are supposed to win. The crowd will not be dramatically behind either player, though Eala's enormous Filipino fanbase will make their presence known in Paris. The emotional labor falls on Jovic to justify her higher position. One tactical dynamic deserves particular attention. Jovic's Charleston interview revealed that she has been prioritizing variety and unpredictability on clay, mixing spins, changing return positions, employing drop shots. This is the approach of a player who recognizes that pure pace gets absorbed by the surface and who is building toward a more complete clay identity. But building is different from having built. Against Eala, whose own game is still finding its clay footing, we get a matchup where both players are performing a version of themselves that remains slightly provisional. The Rome evidence provides perhaps the most useful comparison point. Jovic took a set off Goff, held match point, and competed at an extraordinarily high level for roughly 90 minutes before unraveling. Eala pushed Rybakina to tight games in both sets and never looked overwhelmed by the world number 2's power. If you grade on quality of opponent, both performances are impressive. If you grade on outcome, both lost, but Jovic had the higher ceiling moment and the more devastating collapse. Can IGA beat Jovic? The honest answer requires acknowledging what is knowable and what is not. What we know, IGA's lefty patterns will cause Jovic problems she cannot fully prepare for, regardless of their doubles familiarity. because receiving a left-handed serve on the opposite side of the net is a fundamentally different experience than standing beside it. What we know, Jovic is the better mover on clay right now, the cleaner ball striker, and has demonstrated the ability to sustain a higher level for longer stretches this season. What we know, both players are operating outside their comfort zones on this surface, which introduces volatility that favors the underdog. What we cannot know is which version of each player shows up on the day. Iga at her best, the woman who bageled Freck and dismantled Wang's sinew in Rome, is capable of overwhelming Jovic with angles and rhythm disruption. Iga at her worst, the woman who won 12 games total against Mertens in Madrid, would hand Jovic an easy afternoon. The same variance applies in reverse. Jovic at her Rome level nearly beat the defending champion. Jovic at her Strasbourg level lost to an opponent ranked 50 places below her. The matchup favors Jovic on paper. Her movement, her ranking, her seeding, her clean ball striking, and her demonstrated ability to compete with the very best all point toward a comfortable first-round win. But paper does not account for the specificity of left-handed geometry on clay, the psychological discomfort of dismantling a friend and partner in your first Grand Slam match together, or the wild card of Iga's apparent Rome-level transformation reaching fruition on the biggest stage in clay court tennis. I will frame it this way. Iga does not need to be better than Jovic to beat her. She needs to be better than Jovic on this particular day, on this particular surface, with this particular set of angles. The margin is narrow. Both players are in the midst of active clay court evolution. Both lost last week. Both have demonstrated brilliance and fragility on red clay within the same month. The difference is that Jovic has shown she can maintain brilliance for longer stretches, while Iga has shown she can produce it in more concentrated bursts. For Iga to win this match, she needs three things to happen simultaneously. Her serve must land consistently enough to prevent Jovic from establishing aggressive return positions. Her forehand must find the depth and angle to push Jovic behind the baseline rather than letting rallies neutralize. And she must maintain emotional equilibrium through the inevitable stretches where Jovic's movement retrieves balls that should have been winners. If any one of those three elements fails, Jovic's baseline quality will grind her down over best of 3 sets. For Jovic, the path to victory is simpler. Neutralize the lefty angles early by positioning further left on the return. Be patient in rallies, trusting that her cleaner striking will eventually produce errors from Iga's side. Serve with variety to prevent Iga from camping on her exceptional return game. And above all, sustain focus in a way she failed to do against Goff when the moment reached its peak intensity. The beauty of this particular match is that neither player has a fixed clay court identity yet. They are both writing their stories on the surface in real time, and the narrative could go either direction without contradicting anything we have seen. Iga could produce a performance that announces her as a genuine clay court threat at Grand Slam level, giving the Philippines its signature Roland Garros moment. Or Jovic could prove that her Australian Open breakthrough was not surface-dependent, that her game travels to clay as well as it plays on hard courts, and that the teenager Novak Djokovic, called a future world number 1, has no surfaces where she cannot compete. What makes this match matter beyond the immediate result is the friendship that frames it. They know each other. They have celebrated together. And now one of them will walk off court Philippe Chatrier having ended the other's tournament on the first day. That weight will fall hardest on whoever wins, strangely, because the loser gets to be gracious, while the winner must carry the knowledge that she advanced at her partner's expense. Neither will say this publicly. Both will feel it privately. And when the next doubles tournament comes around, they will stand on the same side of the net again and pretend the memory does not exist between them. That is the architecture of professional sport. You compartmentalize or you do not survive. My assessment is that Jovic wins this match in 3 sets. Not comfortably. Not without difficulty. Eala's lefty angles will win her 1 set and several spectacular games. But Jovic's movement, her cleaner ball striking on the slower surface, and her demonstrated ability to sustain intensity across extended rallies will tell over the duration of the match. I expect a scoreline somewhere in the range of 4-6, 6-3, 6-4. Eala takes the first set by riding early aggression and lefty surprise. Jovic adjusts her court positioning and finds depth in the second. And the third set becomes a grinding physical contest that rewards the better mover. But I say this knowing full well that the margins are thin enough for Eala to flip this prediction inside out. She has earned that possibility with her Rome performances. She has earned the right to be taken seriously on clay for the first time in her career. If she can sustain her best level for 2 full sets rather than 1, she has a real chance of pulling off what would be, in context, one of the most meaningful results of her professional life, beating a top 20 opponent at a Grand Slam on the surface that has tormented her most. The draw is set. The doubles partners become singles opponents on Saturday in Paris. Whatever happens, this first-round match carries more psychological complexity than most third-round encounters. That is what makes it compelling beyond the ranking numbers. The tennis will decide the outcome, but the humanity of it, 2 young women who chose each other as partners now required to choose themselves, is what makes it worth watching.